Hey everybody, welcome to On Point. I'm your host Aaron Earhart, and if you're looking for a reliable source to help you grow in your knowledge of God's Word, you found it. We're always going to follow the truth, wherever it leads and regardless of the consequences. If you want to connect with the program, our website is northpointcoc.org. Lots of good information there. My email address is aaron80@outlook.com if you'd like to write me personally. Maybe you have a Bible question or a topic you'd like for us to discuss. Just send me an email at aaron80@outlook.com. And as always, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about Easter. Easter is just a few days away. Some refer to Easter as the Super Bowl for Christians, the most important and popular religious holiday. But some Christians are apprehensive about Easter. They won't observe Easter at all. And they feel that way because Jesus never commanded Easter, nor did the first century Christians observe Easter. Now, those things are true, but I'm here to tell you it's perfectly acceptable to celebrate Easter. If you want to do that, you're within your rights to do that. Now, somebody says, now wait a minute, you just acknowledged that Jesus never commanded it. That's right. You just said that the first century Christians never observed it. That's right. And I know a lot of my viewers have been programmed to think, well, then that settles it. You can't do it. But that's not true. First, let me point out that Jesus and God's people celebrated man-made religious holidays. Did you know that? They celebrated man-made religious holidays with no objections whatsoever. For instance, have you heard of the Feast of Purim? The Feast of Purim was a man-made religious holiday. It was instituted by a man named Mordecai to commemorate God delivering the Jews from attempted Persian genocide. We read about that in the book of Esther. To kind of celebrate and commemorate what God did, Mordecai said, hey, let's create a new religious holiday. They called it the Feast of Purim. Now, the Jews had no qualms celebrating that. The inspired writers never spoke against that. And Jesus himself participated. In John chapter 5, verse 1, we read, afterward, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. Now, we're not told what holy day that was, but men much smarter than me have done their research, they followed the timeline, and they're convinced that this has to be the Feast of Purim. For instance, Ellicott says, the only feast which falls in this interval is the Feast of Purim. Meyer says, this is no other than the Feast of Purim. And Cambridge says, the only one which fits in satisfactorily is Purim. So here you have a man-made religious holiday. God never said to do it. It started with a mere man named Mordecai. And yet the Jews observed it with no qualms. The inspired writers never spoke against it. And apparently here in John 5, Jesus is participating in the man-made religious holiday. He is in Jerusalem celebrating the Feast of Purim. Have you heard of the Feast of Dedication? The Feast of Dedication is also a man-made religious holiday. It came about during the 400 years of divine silence between Malachi and Matthew, during the intertestament period. The Feast of Dedication was intended to commemorate the cleansing and rededication of the temple after it had been defiled by Greek oppressors. They had gone so far as to offer pigs upon the altar to false gods. Well, men came along and said, look, we've taken back the temple. We've rededicated the temple. We need a religious holiday to commemorate that. God never said to do it. And yet the Jews had no problems accepting the Feast of Dedication. Jesus himself accepted the Feast of Dedication. Wayne Jackson, a familiar writer to a lot of us, makes this point, and I just want to reiterate it. He says the Feast of Dedication was not a biblical celebration. Underscore that. It was not a biblical celebration. It was initiated during the inter-biblical era after the Jews had overthrown their Greek oppressors under the vicious hand of Antiochus Epiphanes. Today it is called Hanukkah and is observed in December. So without question, it's a man-made religious holiday. A lot of my brethren say, well, if it's a man-made religious holiday, we can't have any part in it. But wait a minute, pump the brakes. Jesus, knowing this was a man-made religious holiday, still partook in it. In John 10, verses 22 and 23, we read, "It was now winter, and Jesus was in Jerusalem at the time of Hanukkah, the festival of dedication. He was in the temple, walking through the section known as Solomon's colonnade." Here you have Jesus himself endorsing a man-made religious holiday. He is celebrating a man-made religious holiday. The Feast of Dedication was created by men just as Easter and Christmas were created by men. And so if you're going to say it's sinful, if you're going to tell Christians they can't do it, you better be careful lest you condemn Jesus himself. And so I think this is a point that a lot of my brethren miss. Their whole lives, they've grown up in these extreme churches that say, you can't celebrate Easter, you can't celebrate Christmas. And yet the Bible actually says it's okay to endorse, to celebrate, to participate in man-made religious holidays so long as they honor God. And then finally, I would point to Romans chapter 14. In Romans 14, Paul specifically talks about brethren who want to set aside certain days as being religiously significant. Now, they weren't religiously significant to God, but brethren just wanted to set aside certain days as holy days. Did Paul say to accept that or condemn that? Listen to Romans 14, beginning at verse 5. He said, "Some think one day is more holy than another day, while others think every day is alike. You should each be fully convinced that whichever day you choose is acceptable. Those who worship the Lord on a special day do it to honor Him." Verse 10, "So why do you condemn another believer? Why do you look down on another believer? Remember, we will all stand before the judgment seat of God." Do you see what Paul is saying there? Paul is saying if a brother wants to set aside a certain day as being holy, if a brother wants to set aside a special day to honor the Lord, he's within his rights to do that. Someone says, wait a minute, time out. God never said to do that. God never commanded us to do that. So what, Paul says? If it doesn't violate his conscience, so long as it honors the Lord, he's within his rights to do it. And so listen, maybe this is hard for you to hear. You've been indoctrinated your whole life by preachers railing against Easter as a religious holiday, railing against Christmas as a religious holiday. It's not wrong to do it. Now, if your conscience won't let you do it, fine. I respect that. But you ought not to condemn others who do. Somebody says, wait a minute, Aaron, we celebrate the resurrection every week. That's right. But that doesn't preclude having an annual observance as well. Aaron, wait a minute, time out. We don't know when Jesus was born, and he sure wasn't born in late December. That's right. Most people who celebrate Christmas as the birth of Christ know that he wasn't born in late December. It's not about the day, it's about the person. And I think some Christians go way too far in condemning these holidays. If you don't want to celebrate them, fine. But don't condemn those who do. The Feast of Purim was a man-made religious holiday. The Feast of Dedication was a man-made religious holiday. And in Romans 14, Paul said you can set aside whatever day you want as holy, quote unquote, as long as it honors the Lord. Well, I hope that helps. Again, if you want to connect with the program, northpointcoc.org is our website. My email address is aaroneady@outlook.com. We hope you'll like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Finally, if you're in our neighborhood, come visit with us at the North Point Church of Christ. Our building is located in Spencer County, Kentucky, just outside of Louisville. This is a great group. We hope if you're in our area, you'll stop by to say hello. Until next time, stay on point with On Point.